Talk to me. WSRadio.com.
The San Diego Council on Literacy brings you Literacy for All with your host, Jose Cruz.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Jose Cruz. You're listening to Literacy for All, and our guest is Daphne Russell. She is the author of Read or Die, A Story of Survival, Hope, and How a Life Was Saved, one book at a time. Daphne, again, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Jose.
Hey, I'm pulling again from this article in the San Diego Union Tribune, Longevity, page by page, and it says right here, the researchers believe books promote deep reading that is a slow, immersive process, that cognitive engagement may help a reader over his or her lifetime to develop better skills for reasoning and concentration that can improve quality of life, better schools, jobs, income, standards of living. Plus, reading books can promote empathy, social perception, and emotional intelligence that can help create what they call a survival advantage. Do you have something to say about that quote?
I actually have quite a few things I could say, but last year particularly I had a student who's never read anything. And she's reading, I started her off on drive-by, and as she progressed, she would continually tell me stories just involving herself and her mother, and they didn't get along. And then she would talk, she'd read a book and then come back to me, and read a book and come back to me. And as she progressed, she realized how she needed to change. She started cleaning the house more. She started helping out with her little brother more. She started communicating better with her mother to the point that one day she left the house angry and screaming at her mom. And then she got on the bus with her friends, and she realized how horrible that was that she had done that, and it was Valentine's Day. She borrowed a friend's phone, called her mom, and said she was sorry. And she said there was no way she would have done any of that had she not been reading. So the empathy she gained, of course, helped with her mother. But then if that child were to go out in the world with that fighting attitude with strangers, imagine what that would have done to her. But the empathy started at home. And then, of course, it will progress to strangers and other people. She said that she began to look at her friends differently, and she realized that what she was doing was making an impact, and that she would reassess what she was doing because she was reading. Because she was reading.
Wonderful. I have, knowing our work in literacy with the San Diego Council on Literacy, we have a concern regarding young people who don't have the skills. They just didn't really get the help that they needed. They're reading maybe at a first or second grade level, and I know that you talked about helping your students with knowing all the words before they begin to read. You also reference in the questionnaire that we have for this show 3 ideas that, after 29 years in tutoring in Tucson, 3 ideas you were able to stole from other people, in which we borrow a whole heck of a lot of stuff. What are the things that you do that help prepare these teenagers or other students for reading, especially if they're struggling with the skills aspect of it?
It really comes back to that first level. You have to be able to read something that you can read, because when they're fake reading, nothing's being absorbed into them. And so they have to start with something they can read. And honestly, it naturally comes that they want more. Rarely would I have a kid that says, okay, I'm done. I don't want to read anymore. Because once they read that first book and feel for the first time for a character, for someone they've never met, it becomes addictive, just like it does for the rest of us. But our kids are not allowed that opportunity. So they have to be able to start with a book that they can relate to, that they can understand, and it comes with knowing all the words. And then making the connections. And they could be simple connections, like he lives in a barrio, I live in a barrio. It could be his dad is in prison. I mean, it can be something very deep and troubling, but it can also be something simple, like what we had for dinner. It doesn't really matter what the connections are, because as the child reads, their connections become more in depth. And then we have to find that struggle. And the struggle is man versus self. And the struggle of man versus self, it's in everything. And when our children can see that the man versus self on the paper resembles the man versus self of their own choices, then they can start to overcome and see that in other people, see it within themselves, and make choices.
So I'll ask you. It's the question I'm dying to ask. How low difficulty of reading level have you had to go? That is, do you have a book that's very much at a beginner level that is a favorite that you use with your students?
Well, Drive By really is my favorite. I also use Stone Fox, which is The Dog Dies. So the kids who have dogs love that. And it has a racist element that I like, because then the kids feel elevated in having a discussion about racism, which you have to also foster their brain, because you're talking about a teenage brain. You can't insult them with a baby book. And then I have another book called The Jacket that also investigates racism, but is at a lower level of reading. So they can have the feelings, these adult-like transition feelings, yet be able to have words that are accessible to them, which is really important. The lowest reader I ever had, I had some kids that started, and I had a kid that started picture books, actually.
Okay.
And then when she finally made it to Drive By, I would highlight, she'd look at a chapter, I'd highlight, she would tell me the words that she didn't know, she would highlight them, I would teach her those words, and then she'd read by herself and make the connections on her own. We did that for a couple chapters, and by the end of the book, she didn't have to highlight anymore.
Wonderful.
And after she made it through Drive By, then everything else was open to her.
So you have a pathway.
My favorite is the Blue Fruit series. Yeah, as a pathway, right.
Yeah, very good, very good. Golly, just we have about 3 minutes left. I do want to give you time to talk about what you want to do from here on. That you have 29 years of teaching in Tucson. You have this book that you've written. You have a cause that you and I both feel strongly about. As I understand it, you have something that you want to do, maybe as an organization, to inspire changes in the education system so that more children are reading and getting the benefits that I'm seeing in this article in the San Diego Union Tribune. Do you want to talk about the future of your efforts?
Yeah, so as it came to me, actually after I met you, I decided I needed to create a nonprofit, Book Saves Lives. So I'm working on the paperwork for that, and my goal is to make it into a nonprofit, and then to be the first person, I'm going to start going out into places like the Boys and Girls Club. I go in, I train the adults in exactly what I'm telling you, how to help a kid get the book that they know all the words, they can make connections to the words, and then find a man versus self. I train the adults, I bring in the books, and then see what happens. And I continue to train people. I have mentors. I have kids that have graduated from my program who go back to the Boys and Girls Club and continue the program. Because it's hard to change the schools within the schools, and I think that my best chance is to change the schools from what's outside of the schools. Have my kids come into the high school and say, hey, teacher, look, I read The Hate U Give. Have you ever seen this book? And then let the teacher go, oh, well, The Hate U Give, I haven't heard of that. Mm-hmm. And then have the exchange come from my kids and see how that changes how the schools are teaching. I think it would work.
Very good. We have about a minute, Daphne, and I have a question to ask you. As I read your book, it seemed to me that you found time to sit down one-on-one with your students and address their particular needs, not just reading, but just the things that were happening in their lives, and not, of course, in a real deep sense, but enough so that they knew that you had a connection with them. Am I accurate in saying there is a way with the caseload, let's call it caseload, that you might have, classroom roster, to make time for students in a way that's impactful?
Absolutely. If every single student is reading something that's important to them, the time will come. You will have time to call people over, because most of the kids don't even want to come over because they're reading. So they are happy reading and they're not off task, and you have to value the fact that they're reading something that's going to change them and it's important to them. And as soon as we can value and not just criticize and critique what we think the kids are learning, but actually trust they are learning, then maybe we can stand back and sit at our desk and call people over one at a time.
Very good. We've been listening to Daphne Russell. She's the author of Read or Die. We're so glad to have you on the show, Daphne. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Jose. I really appreciate this opportunity.
You're welcome. You're listening to Literacy for All, WS Radio.
raised $8,000 to build schools for South African children.
After realizing how many people go hungry in San Diego, I now volunteer at a food pantry.
I'm spending the next year doing volunteer projects across 3 countries and helping in ways they designate to be the most helpful.
The WorldLink program at the Joan B. Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice recognizes the potential of youth as agents of social change. Learn how you can help youth become a generation of leaders in action at peace.sandiego.edu.
In the military, things can change in an instant. Your personal life is just the same. Just like you protect our country, you want your family protected. That's why thousands of military members trust Navy Mutual Life Insurance. Navy Mutual is nonprofit, providing current and former Navy, Marine, and Coast Guard families with life insurance, no sales fees, and no military service restrictions. Protecting members on active duty and beyond. Call 1-800-628-6011, 800-628-6011, NavyMutual.org, insuring those who serve.
Nowadays, internet devices are an integral part of your home. Everyone in your family has a smartphone, tablet, or a computer. Life is easier knowing that all your devices are secured and your family can surf the internet carefree. ESET Multi-Device Security Pack does just that. One license for all your devices. With ESET, it's simple to stay protected and save money. Enjoy safer technology with ESET Multi-Device Security Pack at ESET.com. That's ESET.com.
I've heard this is like one of the best pizza spots in town.
Yes, it is.
I'll do a slice of pepperoni, slice of vegetarian.
You got it.
And I will pay for all of that in 3 days.
In 3 days? What's that mean?
Well, wait, you accept credit cards. That money's not going to hit your account for 3 days anyway.
I need my money quicker.
At Chase, we hear you. With Express Funding, card payments are in your Chase account the next business day. Go to chase.com/expressfunding. Chase for business, so you can.
Compensated participation. All businesses are subject to credit approval. Not all clients are eligible for next business day funding, and additional terms, conditions, and restrictions apply.
Tired of presentations with no impact, no inspiration, and no traction? Do dull speakers have you and your team disengaged and distracted by smartphones? Christopher McAuliffe brings energy, insights, and 2 decades of experience, delivered with punch, humor, and heart. Your team will leave energized, uplifted, and with a sense of purpose. Visit ChristopherMcAuliffe.com to bring some heat to your next speaking engagement. McAuliffe. ChristopherMcAuliffe.com.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.